Welcome to Ocean Stories, a podcast hosted by me, Lydia Carey,
and me, Sarah Hursping. We may not be marine experts or even professional scuba divers, but we are curious about the ocean and ways to protect it.
Every week, we chat with conservationists, researchers, business owners, and anyone else with an ocean story to tell.
So whether you're a scientist or someone who's simply curious about the big blue, you're in the right spot. We can't save the seas alone,
but we can do it together.
Welcome back. I love this singing.
Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day.
Guess what? We're in the same spot. Are we in the same room? No, we aren't. But one day in the future.
Not in the same house.
I'm actually pretty sick. Just made it through my incredible birthday party and then got sick on the last hours of the festives. So I'm actually kind of happy. We went to karaoke. Lydia was there too. It just doesn't make sense that we are now on the same spot for everyone who's not tuned in before.
I met my internet girlfriend, my internet work wife.
Yeah, we have never met in person. We have worked together for over 2 years, and last week was our official reunion, and it was wonderful. Day one, we went, what did we do? We walked around.
I mean, we did a lot.
The most precious places in San Diego. We actually went swimming and saw seals pop up right next to us.
My mom was also there.
Yeah, Lydia's mom was there. I went on a sunset surf and Lydia was there, watched me, and dolphins popped up. Like, I'm telling you, San Diego just did everything San Diego could do.
It welcomed me with open arms. It was just the most perfect, sunny, beautiful January day.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, and then we had a little birthday bash and we sang karaoke and it was really fun.
I sang Unwritten because the rest is still unwritten. It's a new chapter. It's a new dawn. It's a new day.
True. That is so true. I sang so many songs. There was definitely absolutely no meaning behind any of them. Well, one crazy thing that has happened in this week that I want to talk about is how in the world of 2024 and how in the world, what am I talking about? How in the universe have we only now recorded a baby great white shark on camera? That's
one of those things that just confuses me so much that I just kind of turn my head the other direction because it just boggles my mind too much.
So apparently there was 2 researchers in Santa Barbara, California, about 4 hours north of where we are, 5 hours north. And they were just flying their little drone and they saw 2 great white sharks and they looked all pregnant. And they were floating around and they were just flying the drone, and then one of the sharks kind of dove deeper and all of a sudden a baby great white popped out of nowhere. So they're thinking, like, obviously there's no confirmation for this, but they're thinking that this baby shark was literally born right then and there and then just popped out and they caught it on camera.
What's so confusing to me I saw is that scientists don't know anything. That's not fair. That they know very little about the reproductive process of great white sharks. Like, how is that possible?
And about a bunch of other sharks too. I think it's like same with whale sharks. This is like interesting half knowledge once again here on the podcast, but I think the same with whale sharks. And it's just so crazy because once again we can go to space, but then we don't know a lot about the deep sea, and a lot of these animals are just like, oh, I'm gonna just dive a little deeper and do all my shenanigans down here, and then nobody knows. I mean, no human knows what the hell is going on down there because we can't. It's so hard to track them. Like, you would actually have to follow them down. Like, they're just disappearing. It's crazy. The ocean is so crazy, They're just like, bye bye.
I think we'll have to get someone on to talk about this because in my brain I'm thinking, let's strap a GoPro to the shark. To the mom shark and the dad shark. And then, let's see what happens. And then we would know more about shark reproduction. But I'm assuming that has already been tried or that it is not possible. So I would love to talk to someone that could explain
a little bit more about this. Also,
yeah.
I mean, again, we need someone who can actually explain what the hell's going on, but the fact that sharks are like they are maturing in an egg, but then the shark doesn't actually lay an egg. They're still born, like a live birth. So they're like in an egg, and then they hatch inside the body, and then they're born. But then there's also sharks that actually lay eggs.
Some sharks have
those
eggs,
are like the crazy black
the screwdriver
things.
ones.
Yeah, exactly. Damn, just like a lot of crazy things happening in the shark world. Good things we have a bunch more shark people coming on in the future.
A lot more shark content coming your way, listeners.
Yay! Well, and that's about our week. One thing we're so excited to tell you about. Maybe you've already seen a little bit of a kind of random video just cruising around on our Instagram with my lovely friend Megan in it. We want to start this new fun format that's called like the Ocean Stories mini-series, where we just interview people. It's kind of like street interviews, but also whoever's listening to this and wants to send in an ocean story, please do so, because we kind of want to highlight how people everywhere in the world, even though if they're landlocked, everyone has like an ocean story, and a lot of the time it's like a fun one, and actually like I don't want to say it changed their lives, but I feel like the ocean just has like a big impact on a lot of people, and there's like, I don't know, you know what I mean, Lydia? Jump in here.
I know what you mean. I mean, I think that was beautifully said. We want to talk to more people and showcase their ocean stories, no matter what their background, because there are a lot of ocean stories, and some of them are shorter than an hour long.
Exactly. Exactly. So if you have a crazy ocean story, just record yourself and send them over, honestly. We can't wait to hear everybody's ocean story. And no matter how small or big they are, yeah, we're so excited. Well, today we have a really exciting podcast episode because it's not a regular podcast episode at all. We actually did a podcast swap. So you can hear one part of this episode on our account and then the other part of the episode on another account. And Lydia will give you further instruction of what's going on here.
We got a message from Sustainability in the Sea podcast asking if they would want to do a podcast swap with us. And after we checked them out and saw that they have all these amazing guests that are so aligned with things we like to talk about, ocean topics, ocean businesses, and all of that, we were like, yes, of course. And then we sort of discovered Future Swell and Carissa Cabrera, who is the founder and CEO of Future Swell and also the host of Sustainability in the Sea. She's super cool. She wants to bring ocean conservation to the masses. So she's a content creator. She's a climate activist. She's doing all sorts of things in the conservation space, talking about solutions, climate optimism, like basically everything we love to talk about. Talking to her was genuinely a pleasure because she's so inspiring and just has a really positive energy. So, like Sarah said, on our episode, you can hear us talking to her about her story. And on her episode of Sustainability in the Sea, you will hear us telling our story. So be sure to listen to both of them if that interests you, if you so please. But yeah, enjoy this conversation with Carissa about Future Swell, ocean stuff, and just kind of being a woman in ocean conservation.
And definitely make sure to check out her podcast as well.
Yes, Sustainability in the Sea. We will put everything in the show notes, of course, like always.
Let's bring her on.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ocean Stories, everybody. We're super excited. Today we're doing our first podcast swap. So we have Carissa here from the podcast Sustainability in the Sea, from Future Swell, and from a bunch of other things that I'm excited for you to explain. We just recorded an interview of us with Carissa, so if you want to listen to that first, go check that out. Well, you can listen to it in any order. I don't know why I said first, but you can listen to whatever one you want. But yeah, we're super excited.
Yay,
welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Seriously.
Yay. Well, we start our podcast with the same question, which is, where in the world are you right now?
I am on Hawaii, or on Oahu in the Kingdom of Hawaii. I live in a little town called Kailua, on the windward side of Oahu. So I'm in the Pacific Ocean.
Wonderful. I love the background
That bird
noise.
is beautiful. What type of
I
bird is it?
know.
Do you know?
I don't. I want to get into birding. There's like a part of me that is like saving it for later in life, but I've heard that it's really calming. I know nothing about bird species, but I would love to like look at it and be able to tell you like exactly what it is and what it does for our environment. But unfortunately, I just know the noises.
That would be cool. It'd be crazy if you know which noise is which bird. Well, one day. One day.
One
So,
day.
how did you end up in Hawaii? Did you grow up there, or what was your path? And how did you?
Yeah, I ended up here really serendipitously. So I was applying for graduate school. I had just finished my undergrad in Arizona, and it's really expensive to apply for graduate school. So I didn't like have the means to apply to a bunch of different schools. But I knew someone through a friend that had applied here, and was like, "Hey, it's like cheap. They have like a later deadline. Like the application fees aren't that high. You should shoot your shot over here." So I did that, but I was ultimately trying to end up in graduate school in California. So that's where like most of my applications were. And then I ended up getting in here, and it was appealing because there were just a lot of reasons why it made a little bit more sense. And I ended up here. I came out here in 2016, and
Oh,
I've just been
wow.
here since. Yeah, been here since.
Well, it seems to be a great place. What did you study? What was your undergrad? And
So
then,
the school I went to, because I grew up in Arizona, so it's
Mhm.
landlocked, and the school I went to, the University of Arizona, didn't have a marine bio major, and so I studied ecology and evolutionary biology. It was just like a tangential bio major, which I'm so happy I did, because I feel like I look at the world through the lens of like the whole ecosystem now, and the whole like timeline through evolution. And then like when I was a junior and like the later part of my college career, they added like a marine science minor, which I ended up taking. So I took like a couple ocean classes. Like honestly, I was trained on like so much other stuff outside of the ocean originally at the beginning of my like education career.
Did you always know you wanted to do marine bio when you were doing that major, or were you persuaded?
No, that was totally it. Like I was in high school, and I was like, I'm trying to be a marine biologist, and then they were like, okay, well, your scholarship's only in state, so you need to stay in state. And then I met with an advisor, and they were like, we don't have a marine bio major, but that's okay. Like I guess a lot of people do this, which now that I'm older, I know that that's the case, but I think at the time I was disappointed. And the advisor was like, just choose like any of these bio majors that like most interest you, and we'll like implement like you'll take some ocean classes later on. And I knew at that time too that I was going to get my master's, and so that's how I was like, okay, I'll just specialize later, is kind of what I did. And I just like ripped off the school band-aid. I didn't want any
Mhm.
gaps. I just wanted to like keep going until I was done, and that's how I ended up in Hawaii.
Yay. So, how did you fall in love with the ocean, or how did you, because you just said you were in high school and you already knew that you really wanted to study marine bio. Um,
Yeah.
and you grew up landlocked. So, what was the path? How did you fall in love
That's
with the ocean?
I know. I feel like so many landlocked young people who love the ocean have a similar story, but it was just like a handful of ocean experiences when I was young, usually characterized by vacations, and like my parents like letting me snorkel when I was really young and see the ocean through that like kind of more adventurous experience when I was young, and then it always stayed special. And I was always like begging my dad, like, can we go to, because in Arizona it would be like either Mexico or San Diego. And so I'd be like, can we go to one of these and just spend a weekend with the beach? And it was always only like once a year. It was something I like look forward to. And yeah, I also, because of like my era too, like I grew up going a lot to like SeaWorld. I went to SeaWorld when I was younger, and I remember feeling like that's when I um like had ever seen whales up close. And now I work to protect whales, and extremely I align with anti-captivity, but at the time I feel like those experiences sparked curiosity for me to just get out into the wild ocean more. And I think it was totally, it had to be my dad bringing me to the ocean when I was a kid.
That's sweet and that's lovely. You're actually not the only person who SeaWorld has inspired them to
So many of
do
us.
conservation stuff that we've talked to.
I
That's a
know.
super interesting pathway that people our age seem to have had. When you were
Did you guys
talking
have
about
that?
what you studied, well, I don't know.
Did you go growing up?
I never really went because other SeaWorld, I don't even know if there's a SeaWorld park in Germany. I went to the one, like, we had a lot of zoos with dolphins, and it was definitely the best thing ever, and it was always my dream to be on the stage and get a kiss from a dolphin, so that was definitely a big factor. And yeah, probably that's also why I love dolphins. I mean, everyone loves dolphins, but yeah, when I saw them in the wild for the first time, I lost my absolute shit. It was crazy.
Yes.
Did you go, Lydia? I've never asked you this. Oh, you had this other
I'm from
park,
Virginia.
right?
Yeah, I'm from Virginia, and we have the Baltimore Aquarium. Well, it's in Maryland, obviously, but it's close to where I live. And they have, I don't know if they have it anymore, but they used to have a super famous dolphin show that made everyone want to be a dolphin trainer. I did go to SeaWorld in Florida, and I saw the orca show, but I think I was 9 or 10, so I don't remember it. I just remember that we were obsessed. But that's all I really remember, to be honest. And then that documentary, and then blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think when you're a kid too, you're not looking at it through the lens. Like when you know more, I really fundamentally believe that like if you know better, try to do better. So we just didn't know at the time, but understanding like what specifically the California-based SeaWorlds like have done to wild populations for the captivity industry, I was just like, I was done after that. But I do think that part of teaching the next generation about like feeling that connection that we all got is part of like podcasts and video and content and films. And so there's just like a next wave of whatever SeaWorld's going to be, or like rehab centers instead of seaquariums and captive dolphins for entertainment, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Such an interesting area of expanding study, like new ideas, AI, sustainable tourism, like ways we can connect people with the animals without, capturing them and destroying their populations.
Yeah.
Anyways, when you were talking about what you studied, it's crazy to talk about. When you were talking about what you studied, it reminded me of how when you first start studying, you have all these ideas, or at least I did, of what I was going to be doing. I thought, I could be in this job, I could be in that job. Now it seems like you have a really cool multi-path. You're doing all these sorts of things. How did you get from wanting to be a marine biologist, or I'm not sure what you wanted to be, to what you're doing now? Like, did you imagine that for yourself?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. So my thing I wanted to do was to save wild animals and to rescue wild animals. And I got an animal rescue job really soon after graduating. I think it was like a year after I got my master's, and I was brought in.
So you achieved the dream that you had.
The idea of the dream, and then you get in the job, and you're like, oh, this was not at all what it was advertised to me as when I was growing up. There's all these other parts of it that didn't, because being a technician at like a rehab center, or like it's something you can do early in your career. Like if you want to be like the vet running everything, yeah, you have to go on to vet school and things like that. But you can even like volunteer. Like people listening to this now can go volunteer and do that and get trained. And so I got into that organization, and I was like, this is amazing for a while. And for a while it was. And then as I got older, I was in like my early and mid 20s with that organization. I just realized like other values that are really important to me personally. Like I really need freedom. I really need like flexibility. And I saw what was going on outside of the organization. Like there's limiting funding and resources for these organizations, even though they're incredible. And like content is such a good way to fundraise for organizations, and people are spending time online. And I also, if you work in animal rescue, this is something I wish someone had just told me. You don't have any days off, really, unless you're in like a really solid organization. Like I was working like Christmases and like all of these things that prevented me from spending time with my family during those years I was with the organization. And that was like the determining factor of why I was like, I need to go like chart my own path, because this is a huge value of mine, to have flexibility and to be able to work remotely. And I looked ahead and I was like, I need to invest in skills that are remote, like copywriting, like grant writing, like things that I can do from anywhere, and I can still serve these organizations. And so I kind of like made a plan and started going that way. Yeah, but animal rescue was for sure my dream job. And then I I think this happens a lot with marine biologists. You graduate and you realize like what options are available and how sustainable they are for you. And it ends up like causing you to have to diversify or pivot.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people kind of have this path of you have an idea, then you work in it, you're like, maybe that's not it. But I like how you just said that you just tried to gather more skills so you're still able to work in that field and maybe do something different. Can you explain a little bit about all the projects that you are working on right now and also kind of the skills that you gathered and how you gathered them? Because I think that's really interesting for people that want to do something similar but don't really know where to start. It can be so overwhelming.
Yeah, I think I'm just the type of person who like also just takes a lot of agency and initiative over like what my life is going to be like. And so I knew like, okay, I can't be leaving this organization in the next 3 months, but I can like start making a plan and working towards an exit route. And so grant writing was the main skill that I was like, I'm going to learn because it's something that I love writing. I've always loved writing, and I always felt like I was good at it or had like received that from mentors. And it's something that every organization needs. They always need a grant writer, and it doesn't. And if I'm like 60 years old and like retired and want to like help a small dog rescue, like I can write grants for the small dog rescue too. So like it just felt like a really transferable skill. And so I quit. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to pan out. I quit during COVID, which was, every single person in my life told me not to do that. And I, at the same time, was watching content skyrocket on TikTok and watching social media content creators like diversify into sustainability and environmentalism. And like all of this was happening concurrently. And I was going to nonprofits that I knew in my network and being like, have you guys thought about like storytelling in media or short form content? And at the time, nobody knew what I was talking about. Because I don't know if you guys remember at the beginning of the whole TikTok era, people like weren't really on it. Or I don't know, I'm a little older than you guys, but people my age were like not on it. They were like, oh no, I don't, that's a dancing app for teenagers. Yeah. And so I was trying to convey the potential of it to people and they weren't receiving it. And so I was like, okay, well, can I just like write some grants for you under contract? And that's what I've been doing since. So like half of my work with Future Swell, which is my consulting and media company, is working with nonprofits and building programs for them and writing grants for them, like outside, like not represented online at all. And then half of it is working with clients online and creating video content and media for them through like amplification or video production or things like that. And then we have like internal projects like our podcasts that are just self-produced and are really like a resource and value to our community. So we work with nonprofits. So I still took all those skills that I'd had before I started Future Swell and am using them. And then I have all these other emerging skills based in media that I hope to ultimately be doing, I think, full-time.
That's so cool. How big is your team by now?
So the biggest we've ever been was 7 people. But now we're at 4. So I'm the only full-time person though. Mm-hmm. So I'm full-time and my partner is part-time. We founded it together. He has a full-time marine bio job. And then we have 2 part-time folks, a marketing manager and then like a content producer who have been with us like forever. They've been with us for like 3.5 years now. And based off like we're really flexible. I run this organization in a very freedom-based way, and so like everything's done remotely and based off like our seasons of life, like we'll scale up or scale work down for everyone. And I think that flexibility like is one of the reasons why we retain employees for long periods of time.
Wow, that sounds great.
That is so inspiring. I love that.
I'm just and like, I saw you just what I wanted.
Yeah.
Like
true.
I wanted a boss to be like, I trust you to do your work on your own time. And if you don't do it, then we'll have a conversation, but I'm going to trust you first. And so I was like, that's how I'm trying to run it. Like, I don't want to be hand-holding or micromanaging, you know?
That's amazing.
Totally. I saw you just did a collab or a partnership with covering. I just saw that you did some news coverage of COP28, which I found super cool. How did that?
Oh, that was
That was amazing.
Crazy. That was like the craziest partnership I think we've ever had, ever. I wasn't even there. I wasn't even in COP. So we developed a partnership with a friend of mine, Bodhi. Like, we've been friends forever, but he started I was at a conference with him like maybe earlier last year, and I just talked to him about the way that content is going and the need for ocean climate content. And immediately after that conversation, he was like, all right, I'm going full swing in it. Let's do it. And so throughout the year, we've both been working really closely together on storytelling initiatives in the direction we want to go. And, you know, I think that a huge lesson in some of this stuff is some people will be like, whoa, how did that happen? And like, it happens the way all amazing stuff happens. Like, someone advocated for you on the back end. Like, your network and friends speak up for you in like rooms where there's opportunities, and like you invite other people in on the work that you're doing and the solutions that you're building, and like you ask for help. And like, if any of those things didn't happen, that partnership wouldn't have occurred. So we have a colleague who has been working with the government to talk a lot more about the value of content for climate solutions, and then they were looking for someone on the ground at COP. Bodhi was the one on the ground, and Bodhi needed support with running a campaign because he's relatively new to content. And so all of these perfect things came together to have us interview Noah. And then, because of all the crazy ocean announcements that happened at COP, someone else in the government was like, oh, can you interview us too? And then that turned into a separate interview series with the White House, which was just like, what this tells me is not like, what it tells me is that this niche that we work in and that we're all trying to build is growing exponentially, and that there's infinite opportunities and potential roles and jobs in ocean climate conservation, sustainability, storytelling, like, and that it's only ever going to be more important. And I think that's so exciting. Like, when they agreed to that partnership, I was like, our lives are going to change, not because of this partnership, but because of what this means for the next 10 years of our work. And so like, my message to people listening is just like, if you've ever been like a creative person or a storyteller and you're passionate about that, like, now's the time to like dive in like 100%.
Wow. That is, you couldn't have said anything.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, we're just kids who know how to video edit. Sometimes I feel that way, you know, like, we're just like doing our best, and it feels like finally these large institutional agencies and organizations are seeing so much value in that, when like 3 years ago I was like literally just like laughed at constantly. So it's just, oh my gosh,
I love what you just said. I'm smiling like an old grandma because it touches my heart, because it's so true. Do you know how many people have laughed at my degree and just laughed at my face when I tell them I'm interested in working in sustainability? And it's like, just you wait. Like, I'm an old person, like, just you wait. Because I don't know, it's going to become important one way or another. So it is really inspiring and admirable. That story is awesome.
But
thanks for sharing it.
Thank you for asking. But like, one of my 2024 goals is just knowing that like, we have like so much intuition about like what's best for us. And like, I mentioned it, but like, everyone told me not to quit my job. They're like, it's too risky. You need to be focusing on this with COVID or like whatever. But I knew what was right for me. And so sometimes it's really difficult to let go of people's perceptions or what you think other people might think. And it's like such a journey, especially for young women, but it's never like, overcoming it, I think, allows us to like step into what we're supposed to be doing.
That is such, I love that you just said that, because I feel like, especially in your 20s, and I feel like I can speak for Lydia and me too. It's like, it's so daunting, and it's always like, oh, I feel
people
like
are mean.
Exactly. And you have this like bigger plan, but obviously you also need to financially secure your life. And there's just so much, it's just sometimes hard to stay on the path. And you're like, okay, maybe, honestly, maybe I'm just going to get a marketing job and get my normal salary and just gonna hop off the sinking ship kind of. But no, it's not. Yeah. And you just got to trust the process. And I feel like,
it'll unfold.
And for sure.
You are not holding your mic, but if you were holding it, why is this so cheesy? Right, if you were holding it, you would have gotten some mic drops. Sorry, I just thought of that, and it was like an intrusive thought that I had to say. That was beautifully said. I want to know more of your thoughts on things. First of all, I want to know, what animals were you rescuing?
Oh,
in your old job?
Hawaii is the extinction capital of the world, guys. People didn't know that it's most all islands are, because the species that live on islands like evolved there. So anyway, most islands suffer a lot from extinction. So we have a lot of endangered species here. But I was working with the endangered Hawaiian monk seal, which only exists here, and their population's actually recovering. It's at like 1,500. So good news, guys. And then sea turtles. So we have a handful of species here, but mostly green sea turtles, and then the endangered hawksbill sea turtle, and then seabirds. So we have like the Laysan albatross, who are so beautiful and mate for life and are like giant and have like 15 feet wingspans. And then some like other seabirds like the shearwater and things like that. So seabirds, sea turtles, and seals. And then I was also working in dolphin and whale response for a while, but that was like my graduate work, and it wasn't turning into a full-time job. So I switched over to other species. But the goal was ultimately dolphin and whales from when I was a student. Probably because of SeaWorld, if we're being honest.
I was just curious. I was like, what animal rescue? Because it could be so many things over there in Hawaii. Such beautiful biodiversity. It's a shame the extinction thing. We got to figure that out.
Yeah, but there's lots of amazing people doing the work. So, and now I work in coral restoration. So I pivoted over there a couple years ago.
That's cool. I love coral restoration. That's so random. I'm like so interested in it.
It's like growing a lot, and a lot of funding's going to it. So there's like a huge need for coral restoration, like technicians and storytellers. So I'm going to manifest that for you, Sarah, for you to cover those stories one day.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm manifesting with you. Lydia, what else? You said you have a lot of...
I see the thoughts in Lydia's face.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so Lydia's thinking.
I'm like trying to decide on just one. It sounds like you've pivoted quite a few times, but all within the ocean realm. What really resonated with me about what you've said is finding a lifestyle that works for you and a skill set that works for you and works in your heart and your mind, your like whatever you're best at, but also contributing those skills to a cause, and also just adapting over time, like finding what's most important to you and learning and changing. Now knowing all these things, having these different career pivots, what do you wish you knew in the past? Like what do you wish you knew when you first started out?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I wish I knew that like literally don't act like someone else is going to advocate for you in your role. Like you need to advocate for, especially as women. Gosh, we're just like sometimes taught to make ourselves so small. And like you need to be like advocating for your pay. You have to be advocating for your time off. You should be advocating for your like the responsibilities you want to be working in. So I come from like really small organizations, like 15 people or less. But what that means, it means you're doing everything, but it also means that there's a lot of opportunities for you to be like, hey, I was hired for like, education, but I'd like to like go learn a little bit more about grant writing. And so I wish I'd learned that like you really need to kind of communicate with your peers and your supervisors, like what you ultimately want to do and what your goal is, because a good supervisor will get you a little bit closer to that goal. So I try to always like think about the bigger picture of it. I didn't anticipate ever working in coral restoration. That pivot was kind of an unnatural one. But what happened is I met an organization that embodied all of my values. As a worker within conservation, within climate, like they are like one of the only organizations like using Native Hawaiian indigenous knowledge to inform coral restoration, and that stuff outweighed the fact that I was going to leave, protected species and switch over to coral. And so it was about being open-minded and not like saying no just because the way something looks on paper, and like just giving things a try. And then lastly, it would just be like that it's not like we're not like here to play it small. Like if you want to go do something, you should give yourself like 100. You owe it to yourself to try it 100%, at least for a little bit. And that was really hard for me with content and media because I knew nothing about it. But then I was like, all right, I'm just going to send it for a year and see what happens. And like, if I didn't do that, I don't even think I would be in this conversation right now,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
That's what I would say.
Now that you are where you are now, you have a podcast, Sustainability in the Sea, future swells going on. What do you see in the crystal ball of 2024?
I just want to. So we started covering stories, like organization stories, right? Like maybe 6 months ago. And a lot of different kinds. And part of that is like we bring people on the podcast, we learn about their work, and then maybe if we're in their area, like we'll go cover what they're doing. And we just got back from Indonesia and we're still processing a lot of those stories, but we got a couple out. And so I just want to focus more on that. Like I want to focus more on like recognizing that I'm not an expert and that I don't really know. I think a lot of people think that marine biologists know everything about the ocean. And instead, we know everything about like 1 to 2 single things in the ocean. And so like being able to create like almost like an incubator for other ocean climate conversations with the platform that Future Swell has and that Carissa and Climate has, because ultimately we just need people to learn about this stuff. And so even though that's like a big idea, the ultimate pathway to getting there is we have to like grow all of our platforms like significantly, which is so hard, as you guys know. And so that's my goal for 2024 is to try to make the platforms as big as possible. Try to get on YouTube was one of them, so that when we go to an organization and we go, hey, your solution needs to be shared, we have the way to share it. We can come with that and help them, because at the end of the day, like people aren't watching the news. People aren't watching, like it's going to be content, and we need more people having the platform to offer them. And I rarely see like something at the intersection of everything that we do. So I think those are my 2024 goals. I'm also getting married this year. So just to chill while I'm getting married and like not overwork is like another goal. And then my third goal is to like enjoy here. I feel like I've been working really hard on Future Swell, and I sometimes don't always enjoy like my freedom and flexible schedule. And so to enjoy Hawaii and being outside during the day a lot more.
That sounds beautiful. And I like how you just not only talked about Future Swell, but also about your private and personal life. It's great that you need to take time, and part of your goals should definitely also be enjoying life and not only working. Even though it's great.
Congrats on your impending marriage. That's super exciting.
Thanks, guys. Impending marriage. There it is.
Wait, sorry.
2024.
Is that a weird way to say it? Oops. Yeah,
it's true.
Super exciting.
It's true. Yeah. I know, I'm excited. It's going to be fun. So I definitely feel like there's only excitement when I think about like the first couple of years of starting an initiative are like the hardest ones. And then now it feels like things become a little bit easier.
That's great.
Well, you've definitely given us some hope. We're feeling fired up, and I just really like the eloquent way that you phrased a lot of the things we've been feeling and talking about in the ocean world. So thanks for coming on and chatting. Now it's time for our final last question. Sarah, do you want to ask it?
I'm scared.
It's
easier than yours.
Yeah, way easier than yours. What is your favorite ocean story or your favorite ocean moment, if you had to pick one? It can be like an animal encounter or something personal.
Okay. All right. So, okay, we were kayaking. Okay, I'm just going to preface this by saying, like, I am not encouraging anyone to put themselves in dangerous ocean situations, okay? So I was like young. I was really young. My brain wasn't fully developed. I think it was like 23. And me and my partner, we were like recently dating. And we are like offshore kayaking, okay? We shouldn't be doing that. We're offshore kayaking, okay? And we're with his friend and his friend's partner, and they have their golden retriever on their kayak. So there's 4 of us and a golden retriever offshore, like a mile offshore. And we're like enjoying it. Our goal was to get more comfortable in blue water because it's terrifying. And so the goal was to just like sit in the water, like try to calm ourselves and get back on the kayak when you feel scared, right? And there is a giant whale. And because we get humpback whales in the winter here in Hawaii, they migrate down here. And there's a giant whale, and you don't realize how terrifying it is to be next to a whale until you're next to a whale. I've been on whale watching tours, but you're in a boat and it's different. And this was the first time anything like that had ever happened to me. And I started like hyperventilating and panicking. And my poor friend's partner, who's like not comfortable in the ocean, also starts freaking out. And thank goodness, like we were just like, we don't know what to do. Let's just stay still. Like, don't let the kayaks like just like come together as one kayak. And this whale like literally wouldn't leave. Like it wouldn't go away. And so it felt like so much longer, but it was like about maybe like 10 minutes. And then it left and we were like, okay, get back to shore. And I think that I love that story because it perfectly encompasses kind of what the ocean makes people feel, which is like you feel tiny. You sometimes feel scared of how tiny you feel, but it's also like so beautiful and amazing. And like, this is like my favorite species ever. And I could have enjoyed it, but instead I was just so like overwhelmed with how huge everything is around me. And I think that whenever I'm with those people, we always talk about that story and how the golden retriever was just chilling and was like, that's another living thing and I'm okay with it. And yeah, that's my favorite one. And I don't do any of that. We never did that again. We never took the kayaks offshore again. I've just been a little nervous since.
I love how you were trying to calm out in the big blue and then that happened to you.
Yeah, you're like, this is exactly what I didn't anticipate happening while I was overcoming this fear. And then it yeah. But now I just like seeing whales from boats and cliff sides and with binoculars and stuff. But they're just so much bigger than you think. And you just, yeah. So.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I would.
I can imagine because it always feels like, okay, whales are so peaceful. Must be chill, but I don't think, yeah, just like you said, it's hard to conceptualize how big this animal in front of you is until you actually see it. And then obviously, I don't know, their fins and everything is so big, it can still hurt you just by moving around. It's like so much weight and wow, yeah, that's crazy.
But I hope that, in a couple of years, if we ever do a podcast swap again, I hope I will have like a different story for you because I hope that that's not like the only one that comes to mind. I hope like my best ocean stories are ahead of me,
I hope so too. I'm sure. We will check in again in a couple of years. See.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Well, thank you for joining us. That was wonderful. And definitely check out the other reverse episode when you're listening to this. We will make sure that it's launching at the same time. And yeah, thank you. You said so many beautiful things and actually really encouraged us, I guess, at least me personally, to conquer 2024 and work on all these amazing things.
Yeah, the best is yet to come. We're good.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Ocean Stories. If you'd like to follow along on Instagram, you can find us at oceanstories_podcast for updates and behind the scenes.
We'll also be sharing our ocean adventures on YouTube at Ocean Stories Podcast. If you like this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
Join us next Tuesday for more Ocean Stories.